Greetings. My name is Jeanne Allert, and it's a pleasure to join you for the Redeemed and Restored event. I'm feeling kind of a warm cheese and beer kinship with you all, having been born in Waukesha with a mom from New Lisbon and a dad from Milwaukee. But today I'm coming to you from Baltimore, Maryland, after a rather non-linear journey around the world and back to the United States. But I'll spare you that story. But let's jump into my story at 2007. When God pulled me out of my corporate life and told me to create the first long-term restorative care program in the mid-Atlantic that would serve victims of domestic sex trafficking. Back in those days, the United States didn't really know too much about the exploitation problem here in this country. We knew something about it globally, but we hadn't really looked at ourselves yet. And so for those of us who started in the early years, it was a pretty lonely time. After a few years into the work of serving survivors and really learning by doing, I had occasion to meet Krista, and she was eager to learn from our experiences. And as you know, she can be quite persistent, but also brave. She decided she wanted to come to Baltimore and live in our shelter home with our ladies for a week. It was her own self-imposed immersion experience. And I think we can safely say that it took root, because she has been a stalwart champion for creating a similar shelter program in Wisconsin ever since. And the road that she has been on has been a hard one, personally and professionally. But that's really part of the promise of this work. Nothing about it is easy. It will show you things about the world that you don't want to see. It will take you places you don't want to go. And it will show you things about yourself that maybe you don't want to admit. Because as we do this work, God uses us not only to restore others, but he's also doing his perfect work of sanctification on us at the same time. And I'll tell you, truly, part of the reason that it's been a joy to walk alongside Krista in the past couple of years is because I have seen her yield to the work of God in her life and in this adventure. This has not gone according to her plans, but she is surrendered to let it go according to his. I'm looking forward to the fact that Redeemed and Restored is getting closer to having a home that will welcome and care for survivors, and that is truly exciting. It's also most needed, and let me tell you why. After over a decade of serving survivors, our organization was getting calls upon inquiries nationally and then internationally. How can we learn from your success? How can we use your model? And so we really took that into consideration and decided that in 2018, we were going to make a pretty significant pivot. So we created the Institute for Shelter Care. We brought together not only our expertise and what we had learned from the survivors and in doing the work, but also 14 other agencies across the United States lent their experiences. And we have built this robust curriculum to help to train the next generation of shelter providers across the United States. Simultaneously, we've been studying the landscape since 2016 to find out who's out there, how are they serving, what's proving to work. As of last month, we've identified 177 shelters across the United States. Might sound like a lot, but that's only 1,300 shelter beds nationally. Juxtaposed against the statistics we hear all the time about tens of thousands of survivors, with housing still being the number one expressed need. So that's why we built out this curriculum, and that's why we are dedicating the next 5 years and $14 million to planting up to 24 new shelters across the United States in areas of greatest need. That's also why we are building out training programs so that we can help to equip existing shelters to build up their competencies in areas and help them serve survivors with excellence. We also continue to publish national research on care practices so that we can learn from one another and ultimately serve survivors better. I want to share this with you that we have learned. Healing of this nature takes a tremendously long time. For some people, it will be a lifetime. There's no pill, no therapy, no quick fix. Our population has taught us that 94% of them were abused sexually as children, and often in the home. 87% grew up in substance abusing households. 70% of them grew up without a father. Over half had had abortions and miscarriages, which means they are carrying profound grief. 48% have criminal records, which impede their ability to pursue certain types of employment. Half are without a high school education, and few have the kinds of skills for employment that would lead to a livable wage. We have a lot of work to do together. We've also learned that in the area of their trauma, most of these individuals have pushed it down so deep. It's what has allowed them to survive. Push it down deep and cover it up with your survival skills. Many of our survivors have taken up to 9 months to show any willingness to go into those dark places and endeavor to face what truly has hurt and impeded their growth. So this is phenomenally patient work. You have to be in this for the long haul, which means that those of you coming alongside Redeemed and Restored have to be committed with your tireless labors, your fervent prayers, and your faithful giving. Better that you should give a little over a long period of time to show being yourself as faithful, because not only will that lend stability to the organization, but it will show survivors that I will never leave you nor forsake you. I am with you always. And as Christians, we are to model those behaviors. You know, I had a survivor tell me once, one of the most valuable things that a person has, particularly a survivor, after her faith in God, is her story. So don't let anybody take it from you. Let none of us presume that we could go up to a survivor and say, honey, tell me your story. That's not ours to have. But if someone gives you willingly her story, know that what she is giving you is something that has been hard-earned and precious. As you may have heard in the adage, it's the test that leads to the testimony. That is certainly true for the young women we have served and the survivors that you will serve. It's also going to be true of you. So I'm excited about what is happening here. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. Let me conclude with one short story to encourage you about the magnitude of the work that you are taking on. Our organization is called the Samaritan Women, and we particularly chose that passage in John 4 because we were so taken by the way Christ encountered this woman that everybody else had shunned. The way he met her with non-judgment, the way he engaged with her, allowed her to wrestle with her questions before he revealed his true nature. And in doing so, she had a life-changing encounter. It was that encounter that we wanted to model and replicate. So we built our organization around that idea. It wasn't a few years ago that the Lord sent me back to John 4 and said, read it again. And I thought, oh my goodness, I know that passage so well. But it comes to us afresh every time the Spirit leads us to read once again. And this time, after going through that encounter, my eyes settled on verse 39. Because of her testimony, many believed. And God was making something very clear to me. It is certainly important that Redeemed and Restored is building your well, where you hope that a life-changing encounter will take place. But the true fruit of this work is what's going to happen when she goes back to her Samaria and she interacts with those people, and it becomes her testimony born out of her tests and trials that really transforms the next generation. It will be your testimony in doing this work, and it will be her testimony in the life-changing experience that will result in many believing. So let that be an encouragement to you. I look forward to hearing about the great work to come out of Redeemed and Restored. Thank you.